Hello, Arty Peoples, and welcome to another episode of Jerry's Live. My name is Emmy Klein, and I'm your host this evening. And today I have the continuation of the class where we are going to be painting our pets expressively in acrylic paints. So if you want to catch up on what we've already done so far, you can always watch the previous episode. It's always available for rewatch on Facebook or YouTube. And we're just going to jump right into this process. Now, before I get there, if you are interested in anything that I'm going to be using today, make sure to go to the website, JerrysArtarama.com, and type in today's class code, which is JL324. And that's going to be down here on the screen here if you want to go back and reference it. But JL324, if you type that in the search bar, the teacher's cart should come up with everything that I'm using, and you can check it out that way. So, jumping right back into where we were. So if we should go to the overhead because I have the painting as it was, but I have one slight change, which is where I added just the green on the bottom of the painting there, which is what I was saying that I was going to do as we ended our last class. So I just, one quick layer of, it was the Viridian Phthalo green just on top here, and remember we had primed this all that really thin alizarin crimson, so it kind of comes out that funky pink kind of color. So the pink plus that Viridian green almost appears purple, which is, by the way, one of my absolute favorite color combinations. So that's where this painting is at right now. And I know I've been watching or all of your comments come in from the last class, and I've been absolutely enjoying all of the questions, and even the people that have been over in our Facebook Live group. You guys have been painting your animals, and I've loved seeing them. They're so fun. Now, one thing I did have happen a lot was everybody asking about painting different colored animals. My cat, this is Nugget, by the way, if you guys didn't know, and this is the reference photo, which is, again, over on our Jerry's Live Facebook group. So if you want to get this reference image, you can go find it there. Of course, I believe my amazing moderators, Amanda and Frida, are going to be clicking that link into the chat there, so you guys can find it there.
We actually pinned it to a featured photo in the group.
Yes, so if you want to join the group, you just have to answer that security question, and if you're already part of the group, you can find this in our featured post.
Yeah,
featured post.
Pinned post.
Featured pinned post. They're really trying to test me with the tongue twisters today. Blah, blah, blah. You guys know I struggle with words. So that's where that reference photo is. Now, I did want to make sure, though, because Nugget is a gray cat. It's a gray tabby. I know she has some variations where some areas are darker, some are lighter, but she's gray. And I know I had a lot of questions about what if you want to paint a white animal or a black animal. So I prepared a little example. And I have a couple of reference images. I decided to paint a white bunny and a black dog. And what I did, let me make sure this is lined up, because this is the reference image, right? So what I did is I painted it. And what I was saying, I actually painted it on a couple different things. This is the clear Duralar, which I had added to the teacher's cart for you guys to check out. The reason why I did that is because when I was saying about there is no wrong color when it comes to what you paint your animal, that's because there is no wrong color. There is wrong value. What you really want to look for is the value. So I have this really adorable doggo painted on two separate things. So this is just a really dark purple. It's this purple. It's the Permanent Violet in the Lucas Curl Studio. Then I have a green. And it works, let me line it up, just the same. But it's that value of that base layer. It's a really, really, really dark color, which is why this is appearing. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't have that glare on the transparency there. That's why this dog is appearing to be a black animal, because the value is there. The colors are funky and they're all over the place, but it is a dark value. And I also have, if I can pull this out of there, a bright red. Well, it's actually not a bright red, it's a dark red. It's the alizarin crimson. Now, alizarin crimson I did use as my base here, that really bright, but remember I used the glaze medium, so I broke it down and it's really, really light value because I just did a really transparent glaze. But if you layer it really dark, or a really, you know, opaque layer, it turns out this really beautiful dark red, which again, still works. Personally, not my favorite. I think I like the green the most. I don't know. You guys tell me which one your favorite is, the purple, green, or the red. Now, what I really wanted to make sure to show you is the wrong value. So I have a bright blue, and you can tell this no longer looks like a black dog. It's because that value, that base tone, is the wrong color. Now, granted, here, let me go back to the purple here. With that being said, yes, even though this is a black dog, I still have other values in here and other colors. The color, again, does not matter, but like all of the midtones where I start to show you the form of this animal's face, it's ranging in value. And so like even the little highlights, there is white in here, just little speckles on his nose and on his little snoot and the little glisten in his eye. Those are the really brightest values, and I made sure to keep them very, very small as far as the amount that I was showing, because I want this to appear as a dark animal. And that's what I was talking about when it comes to the value, and that no color is wrong. It's just the value. So even though this is blue could have worked if I used a really, really dark blue. So that is a black dog. And of course we gotta show you the white bunny. All right, let me grab this. So we have a little floofy white bunny. Ignore the fact that it looks like I bit off the corner of that. I might have gotten oil paint on the corner and just tore it off. Ignore that. So if I line it up, I did the exact same thing. I did the upper layers on top of a clear plastic here. It's a Durlar again. And I have the base, which I also put the eyes in, the nose in, just to kind of have it as a placeholder, and they look so angry. I love it so much. But once you layer this, you can really tell that it looks like a white bunny. Now granted, I do have, if I put it on the gray table, there's a lot of white that I put in here and a lot of really bright value, because if you look at the reference image, there is a lot of highlight, and I wanted that value to be high as far as like closer to white. So I did that so that it would appear correct, because the value that I'm placing on this blue is not really that bright. It is kind of what I would consider for this bunny, almost like a mid-tone. You can see I have the darker blue in there, and like there's even with the eye like the purple, and that's bringing the value range, that's the darkest dark. But you can see even the shadow under his chin, it's like a lighter purple. And then I have green, which is really fun, which actually honestly I think this one's my favorite. Again, you guys tell me which one's your favorite. So there's my little green base bunny. And then I have pink. Again, they just seem to get angrier. Like, they're just angry little bunnies. I love it. And then, all right, so let's layer that. And you can see, even though the color is shifting, it still looks like a white bunny. Now, to explain that, really give you a visual example, this is on black, just a solid layer of black. And you can see that value looks wrong. Again, it looks almost like the bunny is spotted now. Like there's just like little, just black spots of fur. So you guys tell me which one's your favorite bunny, which one's your favorite dog. It's all personal preference. There's no wrong answer. But that's what I meant when I said value. You really want to pay attention to the value. So let's jump back into the kitty. Yes.
When you did your underpainting tests, did you just use colors straight from the tube, or was that like colors that you mixed?
I believe they are actually colors straight from the tube. This is Arctic. It's all Lucas Krill Studio, but this is the color Arctic. This is peach. I think this is peach color. And then this is called Fern. But the Fern, I believe I actually did mix a little bit of white in because it was starting to get a little too dark. And then, of course, black. And then for the puppy, this is just the, what is it, Permanent Violet. This is, again, that Arctic. This is the Alizarin Crimson. And this is the Viridian Phthalo. Again, all of it straight out of the tube. But with the darker colors, I really had to do quite a few layers to make sure that that opacity was really there, because I know that these are really dark colors out of the tube if you really get a solid color or a solid layer of them. But if you start doing transparent layers, that's where you can get those brighter values, if that makes any sense. I hope that does. Great question. Okay, so jumping back to the little nugget. Again, I am using the Lucas Krill Studio. I have the mixing set of 9 on my table here, and I am also still using the I almost said Da Vinci, wow. The Black Swan, the short handle brush set of 12. So I'm probably, again, going to continue to use my favorite number 12 flat, just because I want to be able to use that like chunky kind of brush stroke. You guys, absolutely, there's no wrong brush stroke on this. You can experiment with that. But where we are here is I have a whole lot of midtones. My darker areas need to get a little bit darker, and then I need to have some more highlights come in. So I am going to put some white out on my palette just so I can start lightening the value of things. Be careful with that because it can make things look a little chalky. I need the little snoot to appear white. So I have it pink, there's purple, and I feel like I need to bring in some other colors. So let's maybe go with a yellow, because this is a very yellow kind of tinge. And I have the yellow base as well, so I feel like that would bring it together. And I'm gonna add, drop this directly into my piles of paint. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on, but apparently I've been making a mess lately. There's something in the water, I swear. So normally I'm a very clean painter. Katie can attest to this.
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know what's going on. All right, so I'm gonna make like a light peach, which is why I put out yellow and red. I'll pull this down a little bit. So this is the titanium white cadmium yellow hue, which means that it's not a true cadmium yellow. It's a synthetic version that's a little bit, well, not a little bit, it is non-toxic. All of my paints out here are AP certified non-toxic, so if I get them on my skin, it's not the end of the world or anything. Don't try and paint yourself, but also don't eat your art supplies, but just protect yourself if you are using cadmium paints out there. And then again, I'm using the cadmium red deep hue, same thing. So if I mix the yellow and the red together, I make an orange. And if I add titanium white, I think I need a little bit more red there. I'll get like a peach kind of color. Maybe a little bit lighter, because I need to start having that value shift over to a little bit lighter, right? So as I'm mixing, I'm still trying to pull my brush on the flat sides so that I can still have a really sharp edge. It's like peach on peach. It's not really visible. So I'm having a sharp edge this way, but then I have a nice flat chunky edge that way. So that way I can adjust my brush strokes by the angle of my hand or by turning my brush and getting a thinner kind of brush stroke. So I'm going to lay that down and then I assess to see how the value is. It feels like it's still in that mid-tone range, and I'm kind of okay with it because I'm going to pop in a couple of peaches in the ear. Because cats, when they have, this is a backlit photo, when you see through cats' ears with like the light behind them, they appear almost like a reddish orange, which is really fun. But I don't want it just there. I'm going to actually transfer it into other areas of this painting. So I'm going to just on the like mouth area, a little bit on the underside of her, where her upper lip is starting to curl in. And then a little bit right here in that nose area where it starts turning from the nose into the eye. They tend to get a lot of like, I don't know how else to phrase this, eye boogers. Cats and dogs get eye boogers, and it kind of can discolorate or discolor their fur. And a lot of the times it tends to appear like an orangey color. Again, no wrong answer as far as the color is concerned, but if I have that happen as far as the color, it still makes sense. All right, so I'm gonna just pop in a little bit here, a little bit here, and I'm just wanting to transfer this color around my painting. The reason why is I want it to look harmonious. I don't want it to just be like, why is there orange up there? So it's when you're working, especially in colors that are not realistic, it's best to at least have it in, what's it, the rule of three? I think that's the technical name for it. Rule of thirds is that you want it in at least 3 spots. More is, in my mind, a little bit better, but I also just want it to kind of transfer around. And this is something actually that you can play with, because if you just have a single color appear in only one spot on your painting, your eye is going to be like a magnet straight to that spot. And it's going to appear like you're not, sometimes you don't really consciously understand why you're drawn to that area, but that tends to happen, especially if you use black. And actually I can show you a great example of that. In this, my original painting of the Nugget, I do have black in her eyes, in her nose, in her whiskers, and just right here, there is no black anywhere else. And I think I probably should have brought it down here a little bit, just to kind of keep it going around, but it makes you go right here. And I'm kind of okay with that, but it's one of those things where if you want to physically make sure that you're, the viewer of your painting is, you can kind of control where their eye is going. It's something to play with. It's really fun. All right, and then just a little bit on her tail. And again, I'm just putting like a little dab of color here and there. I am turning my brush. Let me just push that up just a little bit there to where you guys can see. And if you guys are on Instagram or TikTok and you want to see a bigger screen, because I know you're seeing just a little section of it here, you can go over to YouTube or Instagram, or, well, sorry, TikTok and Instagram is a smaller screen. Go over to YouTube or Facebook, there we go, and that will be a larger area where you can see my whole screen, and you can also ask questions about the process. Speaking of, though, how are we doing on questions? Do we have any questions in the chats yet? Hopefully you guys are painting along and having fun.
Not too many yet, but a lot of people like the blue bunny and the pink bunny.
The blue and the pink, they're so cute. Which is funny because I think that my favorite, the green. But that's okay. Again, there's no wrong answers. Alright, so I'm just going to tap this in just a little area. So I know as the stripes are on my cat, those are the lighter areas. So this is kind of a lighter value. Alright, so I'm going to go even lighter with a little bit of white. And again, I'm pulling my brush along the flat edge as I mix my color. I'm going to just tap it in. Now that appears really bright, and that is because it's a really bright value. If this is the brightest color on my entire painting, that will look like a highlight. Now granted, I can control that with adding white in my painting at the very end and really showing you where those highlights are. But this is where you do have to pay attention to how it kind of appears. I am gonna go with a smaller brush. This is a number 8 flat. So I wanna start getting into like these little nooks and crannies of her eye, because you can kind of keep everything throughout the entire painting a little bit more on the messier side. But if you're trying to really make this look like your pet, there is a couple areas you need to pay attention to, and the eyes are one of the absolute most important things. The eyes, the nose, and the mouth, because those are the things that really make it look like our cat. You got to pay attention to the angle of what almost appears like the cat's eyeliner, a little cat eye moment. And if you make sure that you pay attention to those angles, then you can really, really leave the rest of it loosey-goosey and kind of expressive, and then it still very much appears like your animal. There's a little bit of a highlight just on the edge of her eye there. So just a touch. I am going to have to go back in and address those pink eyes, because as crazy as my cat is, I don't think she's a pink-eyed kind of kitty. I feel like I need to adjust the color of her eyes. Probably more naturalistic, and her eyes appear to be like a yellowy green, which is kind of fun. But again, color technically doesn't matter, but I think that is the one area where I want it to be more naturalistic. And as I'm painting this in, technically the bottom of her like chin right here is going to be more in shadow. So if I take a little bit of, get that off of there, a little bit of purple and add that into my color here. Now, purple and yellow are the opposite of each other, right? On the color wheel. So when it comes to those two being mixed, you do have to watch it. And because I have the red in here as well as the white, it's allowing me to make like a more desaturated kind of mauve-y color. But if you were to have a lot more yellow in that mix, you would probably make mud. And it's one of those things that you're going to get better at as you practice and play with your colors, but the best thing to do is just mix your colors, and mud can be beautiful too. It's okay to make mud. Did she just say I like mud? Mm-hmm. That is, yeah, you are a grayish kind of lady. Katie and her grayish.
It's sophisticated.
Listen, that's the beauty of like naturalistic paintings, is that you have to make the most muddy colors to make it look real. Those really, like what I'm painting here is not naturalistic in any way, shape, or form, because the saturation is so high and I'm not really making a ton of mud, so it just looks, compared to like real life paint or a photo of my cat, obviously, like my cat's not pink and purple. But it's one of those things that it's fun to kind of play around with doing naturalistic tones and then doing something more like this where it's more expressive. It's a fun way to play with your colors. All right, so again, I'm trying to pop this like desaturated purple in a few areas where I need to like lighten up the value, because it is on the lighter side. But you can see where I just laid that down at the top. Oh my goodness. I think this is just because of Katie's looking at me crazy. I never dip my hand in paint. I think it's just because of the proximity and me trying to keep it on camera. That's got to be it. I don't know what's going on with the moon.
I think it's a full moon, actually.
Is something in Gatorade? What is going on? Yes. I don't know what's going on. I'm dipping my hand in paint, guys. Something's wrong. Yes. Somebody tell me if like Mercury's in Gatorade or something's happening with the sun and the something or other. Mm-hmm. Anywho, so I'm going to go back to this and I'm going to scooch that a little further away. I think it's just because I'm trying to keep things on camera, so I'm just right on top of my palette here. But yeah, I am just placing that kind of desaturated purple around, and every time I reach off camera here, it's because I'm grabbing just the tiniest amount of water, and this is my brush water, my brush washing basin. Again, tongue twister there, which I love that thing, but just a tiny amount of water just to keep this kind of hydrated, just because I did not mix a whole lot there. You can always mix more colors and you can always mix more of your paint. It won't be perfect, but that'll give you some more of that visual kind of interest where it's slightly different, almost like broken color, which is stunning when that happens. So, all right, I just need to, almost like a transition color between that really bright purple and that darker purple there. Just a couple of areas here. Again, the most important thing is the face right now, and I can leave the body almost as is if I don't want to keep going on this. The one areas I do need to address though, because I did not actually do this in the last section, is that collar and her neck. That needs to get darker in those darker areas, which I'll probably pull down into the tail, kind of right here where her body's turning into her flubber area, her belly. She a chunky kitty. She's well fed. But that area is something where it needs to get darker to where it looks like it's turning in space. Again, color does not matter, it's just the value. And I'm just, again, little dabs of color here and there, just to kind of give me some visual consistency from up here down to kind of where the bottom of her body is. There's almost like a different light coming in this way, which is, it's kind of weird to see because there's, I think the warm light coming this direction in this reference image is from the window, and then the cool light coming down directly on top of her is the overhead light that I had going on. And so I'm having those two, the warm and the cool, kind of clash in here. And so you have to kind of keep that in mind. If you're seeing that in your reference image, you can actually represent that here as well. As long as you keep it consistent. Like if I have a cooler light coming in this way and a warmer light coming in this way, which looks like that's what I was starting to do because this is very cool. So looks like I flip-flopped it, but that's okay. So any of the colors and the lighter values on this side should be, if you're doing it according to the reference photo, warm, but I, again, flipped it, so mine are cool. And then opposite from this direction. So it would be warm on that side. I really hope that makes sense.
Nora said when she was doing her version that she posted in the live group, the lighting was a little bit tough to figure out.
It is. It is because not only is there a really bright, cool light coming down from the top, there's that warm light from the window, that's why it's really lovely to work from your own reference images, because you can find all kinds of royalty-free images out there where it's, you know, there's a million websites that, again, if you're looking for reference images to paint, royalty-free is the best. Because then you don't have to worry about someone legally coming after you because you now have permission to use the image. But when you take your own photo, you're the owner of that image. So therefore you can, you know, paint it to your heart's content. So when you're painting your own pet, lighting can be a little tricky sometimes. And that's why it's just a really great practice to kind of fiddle around with. Okay, so I got that kind of muddy purple around. Now I need to darken these areas where those shadows are. And I think I'm going to do my, like I said, my favorite color combination, which is the Viridian. And actually, I take it back. I'm not going to do my favorite color. Well, second favorite, it's Viridian and purple. Because my favorite is Viridian and alizarin crimson. But Viridian and purple make this really lovely blue, and it's really got a bad glare on there. I'm sorry. Let me actually move this up so you guys can see. That is Viridian, phthalo green, and a purple, right? So the blues that are in both kind of come together and make this really lovely blue that is so pretty. And the I'll probably show you the phthalo, or I'm sorry, the Viridian phthalo and the alizarin crimson in a little bit, because I kind of definitely want to use that in there. But as I'm putting it in, you can see that it's darkening that value because those two colors coming together just looks really dark in value. So pop that in here. And again, I did not mix up a ton of it, and that's okay because I can always mix it again and it might be slightly different, but that gives me that variation, visual variation that's quite lovely. And I'm just scrubbing it in wherever, and I'm paying attention to the direction of her fur as I'm scrubbing it in. Like, I know her fur is going like this, so that's the way that my brush is going. And I'm using, again, if I draw the paint on my brush flat, I have a sharp edge and I have that big chunky edge. So as I'm doing this, my almost like a calligraphy brush, it's going to vary that brush stroke of mine. And I can also turn my brush and adjust it that way. Now I'm going to actually darken that little bell because there are some shadows on there. Also, is it just me or does anybody else have to put a bell on their cat? This little sneaky cat will find her way into absolutely everything. And I have to, like, if it's quiet, I have to find her. Little troublemaker. Please tell me I'm not alone though. Are we? Okay, yeah.
I mean, I've met her, so I agree.
Oh yeah. Whoever in the comments though did suggest that we bring Nugget on the show. I love you so much for suggesting that, but this cat is too wild. Way too wild. She woke me up at 5 in the morning today, wanting to play. I mean, kitten. They're the best. Although my dog Lola was opposed to that idea. She was very upset.
She's a little old lady, so
Yeah.
she needs her beauty rest.
Lola's a grumpy old lady. Alright, so I'm going to just darken her nose. Again, since I'm bringing this around, it's still looking like it's consistently bouncing your eye around in the composition here. And it's continuing, like, I go from her eyes to her nose to, wow, I got something on my finger again. Eyes to nose to like her neck to down here, and then like that line brings you right back up. So it's one of those really fun compositions that you can play with. Also, she's a little sassy. Sassafrassy kitty. So, alright. And just by darkening that little corner of her eye, it starts turning that down into space. Because, you know, your eyeball is a round thing. Same thing with the cats. You know, people, cats, animals, whatever it is that you're painting. If you're painting an eye, it is a round orb in a socket. So you have to remember that there's going to be shading on the eyeball itself. I'm just trying to give her that little kitty eyeliner. Again, I could probably use a round brush, and that would be a little bit more of a pointy brush to work with, but I am using the edge of my flat because I'm the kind of person that gets married to their brush. Not a great idea. But if I get it a little bit over where I'm supposed to be painting, I'm kind of okay with that because at the same time I can always paint on top of it. That's the beauty of acrylics, is in like 2.5 seconds it's going to be dry. And then I can go back over the little area that I need to darken or lighten, whatever way it needs to go. I'm going to also just darken this a little bit. I need just a touch of water. Well, instead of water, let me reach for more paint. Because you don't want to add a ton of water. Like I was telling you guys last time, too much water can mess with the bond of your acrylic paints. So you want to watch how much water you add if you're going to add any. Alright, now I can also just start hinting at shadows on this blanket that she's sitting on. She's got like a little toenail that's sort of visible there. And it just gets darker just in that corner. And then it gets kind of dark down at the bottom. So I'm just going to hint at that. Just enough to kind of give you the idea that it's turning in space, but that's about all I'm going to do for that one. I don't think I need any more than that. I do need to darken up her little paw because it gets dark as it goes down into, like, behind this leg here. And then darken these little stripies. Darken that area. And just kind of bring the shadow kind of up as her chest is coming out of her, like, kind of forward in space. And then she has a couple of little stripies here that are real dark. Tabby cats. They have a lot of little, like, stripes on them. I was really hoping she was going to be a striped cat because I knew I was going to have to paint her. And stripes get more complicated as they go. But she's perfect, I swear. At least tell her that if you talk to her, you know. She's a perfect cat. Alright. Just a couple more little dabs here and there. Did I just hear a goose? Okay, just checking. We have geese in the parking lot here and they squawk. All right, so now that I have all of my darks kind of laid out, I'm gonna actually take white into this mixture. So remember, this is purple, viridian, green, and now I added titanium white. So I can add in just a couple of little dabs of, again, a lighter value, but now I'm starting to introduce more color, which is really fun. And at this point, I'm probably not really paying attention to warm or cool. It's just value. I was going to stick with that, but then I decided not to. Sorry. Because I really love this blue. This blue is fun. But you see this light purple I have here? It is on the lighter side of the scale comparatively to this blue that I have on my brush. So I don't want to cover up that purple because then it's going to look like I just darkened her little paw. So I'm going to just pop this blue in over here and keep it kind of right in the middle of her paw. Kind of adjust that here and there. Again, just dabbing it around. Again, I'm mostly just paying attention to the value. I'm actually, most of that orange that I had in there, I am covering up because it seems like it's too bright. And this is the part of painting that I do love, is that you can be reactive. You can see what you've put down, and as you're putting in a different color, you can be like, oh, that's just not quite right. And you can cover it up, which is the beauty of the acrylic paints, you know? Just a little dab of that blue here. All right, and then because I want that blue over here on her little paw, I'm gonna also swipe it over here onto her tail. Now, the tip of her tail is kind of out of focus in the photo. So when it comes to painting things that are out of focus, you want to not have crisp edges. Crisp edges are your enemy if you want it to make it look like it's out of focus. So like her face I want to be really crisp, but her tail I don't. So I might take this and just have like a swipe of like a really light swipe of this color, but I'm not giving it a defined edge. It's almost just like fuzzy kind of color that I'm just laying on top, but that's it. All right, so I think I do need to actually pull this blue into her face because it's the only place that it's not. So it looks kind of weird. And it's darker, or sorry, it's a little bit lighter than this purple, but it's very similar in tone. So I might just put it right here into the darker areas, because I know I have some really dark areas, but then I have some light areas, and I want it kind of right in the middle, because it seems to be like more of a mid-tone. But I do need to pull it up. Just enough to where it doesn't look weird that it's all throughout her body, but nowhere in her face. All right, I think that's about right. Which is funny because like I've already painted Nugget and I'm never gonna have the exact same painting, which is crazy. All right, so how am I doing on time? 6:09, all right. We're still doing well. I need to adjust her eyeballs because, again, they're not pink. So I'm gonna take that Phthalo Viridian, mix in a little bit of yellow, and I have an insanely bright green color. Almost looks like a lime green, and I feel like that's too much. So I might take just the tiniest touch of purple and darken it. And the reason why I darken this color with purple, and let me get the glare off of it. The reason why I darken that color with purple and not black is because black tends to desaturate things. And I want to keep the saturation pretty high, and I want it to darken, but I don't want it to be like a gray green, you know? It does desaturate it a little bit because the red in that purple does pull the saturation of that green down just a bit, but I need to pop that into her eyeball. Again, I'm using like the corner edge of my brush, just enough. And if I want to start getting brighter areas, let me add a little bit more yellow, because that will lighten the value of your green without making it look chalky. Because you can use white, but you're gonna get that like chalky kind of effect. And if I get a good amount of paint on my brush, do a good amount of layering in here, and it starts pulling her eye more out of space and kind of giving you those highlights that she needs. Because that base layer that I put down is not fully dry, it's wanting to pick that up, but that's why I have a lot of paint on my brush so that it lays down and doesn't pick that up. You can also just wait for it to dry, but I am impatient. But now that I have green in there, I feel like I need to put green elsewhere in her little floof. So, should we make, all right, so do I make the green a mid-tone? I'll let you guys decide. Do I make the green a mid-tone or do I do it a highlight? What do you think? Because I can do a really bright highlight, or I can deepen that green and keep it. I can do like a darker green or a lighter green. You tell me which one. Now, as we're doing that, I am going to rinse off my brush here. And I am also going to probably get black out. I am going to darken just a couple areas with black, and I'm going to show you kind of when you do that, how it really pulls the value really far down. And again, it's just one of those things where you gotta, I just realized I also have to paint the color. But yeah, you realize how dark your values are not until you put in a darker value. How are we doing?
YouTube is voting highlight so far.
Okay.
We have one vote for each on both Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, so let me put in these, the dark darks, and then once we're done with this, I will revisit that to see what you guys think. All right, so I also need to darken the value just around her eyes, because again, the eyes are the most important thing. And I grabbed a smaller brush. This is a 4 flat. Apparently I'm really into flat brushes today. I am just going to just touch in the little eyeliner around her eyeballs. And just a touch into the corner of her mouth right here. So that also gives her a little bit more depth and like her mouth will open. And then I'm going to darken this area here because it's really, really dark. And like I showed you on the little example where I had painted this before, I did do the same exact thing, is that I put it into her eyes, her nose, and right here at where her collar is, just to darken that value. And I'm also going to start putting in a little bit of the dark value for her splotchy collar, because it's almost like polka dotted. It's not quite, but there's a lot of like dark colors, but I really want that buckle to kind of pop forward a little bit. And I can honestly just make it look like it's a black collar if I wanted to. And if you do like me and you just put down a bunch of black and you decide that you don't really love how dark the value gets, if you catch it in time, take a clean brush and you can kind of almost use it as a scraper and pick it right back up. Just to pull that black paint right off the top of the surface. So let me do a little bit of the color here. I'm gonna do, I think it's supposed to be silver, maybe gold, I don't know. I'm gonna use like a peachy kind of color. And if going over top of that pink that's already there, actually I need a little bit of white. We go down over top of that, it will just appear just enough. Again, I'm using the flat brush, so the corner of my, or the flat side of my brush. Here, let me put it here so you guys see it against that black. It's really, really sharp. Again, you can use a round brush for this, but if I just drag it sideways where the flat edge is running along kind of the edge that I'm trying to paint, that's how I get a really sharp line without having to pick up a different brush. There we go. Pop in a little bit of highlights here and there. Get some more of that red. Maybe mix in a little bit of white for a little bit of fun pink. Just some variation. Now, I know right here her collar gets a little fuzzy because she's, I guess, scratched at it. I'm going to probably ignore that. We are artists. We can absolutely edit out what we don't want to paint. So, how are we doing on the boat now? Still the same?
Yeah.
Green highlight, okay. I'm going to take just a little bit of this black and just darken that area just a little bit under her snoot. All right, green highlight. Go back to this size 8 brush here. Yeah, and my paint's still wet, by the way. I'm going to add just a little bit more white. Because if I notice my paint is drying out, it's technically I have a big puddle here that's really thin, so it's going to dry out a lot faster than if I had a larger pile in like a, almost like a bubble, like where I have my poured out my paints up here. So that's going to dry faster. So we're going to just pop in the bright highlights here. She's got these weird little hairs on the top tips of her ears. Did you have a question? Sorry, I wasn't sure if that was a... Sorry, I thought you had a question. Oh, never mind. Never mind. If you do have questions, though, absolutely pop them in the chats. Again, if you're on Instagram or TikTok, jump over to YouTube or Facebook, and you guys can pop them in that way. All right, so if you go, since she's backlit, just along the edges, just on the top of her ears, just maybe a little bit. If you really pay attention to your reference photo, you can really see where that highlight is. A lot of it is right here on the back of her neck, which I originally painted over in the beginning of that stages because I wanted that to kind of have that highlight. I wanted to be able to paint over the background as well as the cat. So that way it kind of almost unifies the two of those because I know the paint is not completely, absolutely opaque. So it's going to kind of marry the two together. All right, and then there's almost like a bit of a highlight here that starts wrapping around as her shoulder kind of comes down his face because you can see the top of that shoulder is going to be visible from the top where that light's really hitting her. Now, technically speaking, I know it's not hitting the side of her body here, but I'm going to pop in a little bit of a highlight there anyway. Because then it looks like that's also getting hit by light. And then I'm going to also pop in a little bit over here on this side. Again, I'm following the angles of her fur. And if I do that, I don't want it to continue all the way down towards her belly because if you do that, it looks like the light's kind of coming, instead of from behind and overhead, a little bit more forward because it's hitting more of the front plane of her body now. And again, I'm going to touch just a little bit on her tail. I'm keeping it fuzzy and undefined because I want to make sure that it looks, again, like it's out of focus, which is really fun. And I think there's just a little bit right there. So that looks like, I think, the tippity top of her head right here too. There's your highlights where they're hitting just the top of the light from the top of her is coming down in. Now, you can technically say that that's done. I'm not going to because I want to bring in a white, a pure white. Now, my cat is gray, but like I did with the bunny and the dog, hold on, let me make sure I grab. You said the pink was the favorite? Pink and blue bunny? So like I did with the bunny, I have some pure white in here. I know the background's white, so it's kind of hard to see, but I have just a pure white on the tip of the ears, just a little bit right there, and then the forehead and then the back of the body, because this is a white bunny. And when it's a white animal, you can get away with a brighter section of white, like a larger section of white. If it's a dark animal, like the black dog, let me find it, hold on. I'm gonna go with the purple. I don't know which ones you guys said was your favesies. Again, I don't want to have a ton of highlights because this is a dark animal. My cat tends to be right in the middle because she's gray. But you can see on the highlights, I put them just in the eye. And it's not just that brightest highlight that's hitting the eyeball there. It's also like just where the waterline meets the eyeball. If you actually look at a lot of images of people or animals, we tend to get like almost an accumulation of I can't say water because it's wet, but it's not actually water. It's like your tears almost. eye stuff. So right along the water line, because gravity pulls down, it does have an accumulation of moisture right there. So it tends to have just these highlights that hit just your waterline, as well as in the corner of your eyes. It tends to also have just a little bit of a glisten. With animals though, their nose tends to be wet as well. So their nose, their mouth, you know, if you have a really slobbery dog, you know, you might have some drools and stuff. I'm looking at you people with the English bulldogs. They slobber everywhere. My brother has one. Her name is Renee. She's adorable. We call her Nene. But her nose is always wet, as well as her lips and everything. So it's that glisten of the white is going to be on the things that are really, really wet. So your eyes, as well as their nose, and right here at their mouth, as long as the light is hitting them in the right direction. So because my cat is not full on in light on her face, it's really on the back of her body, I'm going to take a bright white, and right where I have all those little highlights, I am going to also follow along kind of that area, and I'm going to brighten that up just a little bit. And when it comes to white in your paintings, especially when it's not a naturalistic kind of color, it's one of those things where you really want to make sure that you really are selective. Because it's, my teacher in college used to call them pings. Your eyeball will go ping, 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 everywhere where you put white in. So if you have too many, it kind of overwhelms the senses. So you want to make sure that you don't have a ton. And against this yellow background, you can really see the difference in value. So it's really brightening it up. And I'm going to do just a little bit. I'm not completely obliterating that green as a highlight. I'm just adding just a little tiny touch where it's just a little bit brighter. All right, and then again, this is like the brightest highlight right here on the back side of her head. And then just a little bit here. And I do want to put a highlight in her eye. I do. I feel like I need it. She needs a little glisten. And so I'm going to follow the same rules that I just told you. If I do a little highlight on, I know this has a little light that's coming in this direction, so it makes sense for it to kind of catch the side of her eye. And then I'm going to make it up here. Do a little bit right there. And then I'm going to also follow along that water line. If I can follow along correctly. Because that almost highlighter, let me make sure my paintbrush is nice and flat because I want just a little touch. And now I'm using the corner just to give me those sharp little dings of color. Now I also need just a little bit on her nose just because I want it to be coming back over here. And I think that's the highlights done. I know I have like 4 minutes left, so I really want to paint that bell. But you know what's more important than bells on an animal? Whiskers. I need to give her whiskers because she's got the most ridiculous whiskers everywhere. Now I'm going to just show you kind of how to do them. Which I have a 0. No, we're going to do a 0 round. You want the finest brush that you can find. This is a 0 round. I could even go smaller. Now, when it comes to her whiskers, not all of it's in highlight. So you don't want to do a bright white whisker. She's got all these dark colors and the light is coming from this direction. So I'm going to actually make a bright light purple. That's not bright enough. We're going to do it this way. And I'm going to, I have a hair on this one, sorry. I think my cat came to work with me again today. Actually, it's still not bright enough. I'm going to do bright light. Okay. As I'm getting my brush ready for whiskers, I want to make sure that I have a really sharp kind of point. So as I'm pulling it down through my paint, I'm also twisting it back and forth in my fingers. You'll see my fingers kind of rotate the brush like this. So I'm getting that really sharp edge, just like that. Hopefully you can see that. It's really sharp and it's really small. So then I just see where I'm going to start, and then I put it down, and then as I'm dragging it through, hold on, let me get a little bit. I really wish I forgot it on my table today, but the glazing medium. Really love glazing medium for this. I'm going to put it down on my painting, and then as I drag it away, I'm going to start lifting up my brush, just like that. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me pull it closer. Just has a single whisker, just one. So that way you can actually give her all the whiskers that you want.
While you're doing that, Robin on Facebook was wondering if you are planning on leaving the background that mango color, or if you were thinking about adding any interest in the background.
Yeah, that's the fun thing, is that you really don't have a wrong answer. You can make it this funky mango color. You can absolutely bring it white. I don't want to bring it white because the highlights then would get completely lost. But you can change it to a completely different color if you wanted to. There's really no wrong answer as far as that's concerned. But the thing is that the beauty of acrylics is that if you decide that you don't love it, you can paint over top of it. It's easy. Now, because that light is coming from this direction, I do want to give her highlights on her whiskers, which will bring it back forward into space. Now, I know we have a question. What's up?
Stephanie on YouTube is curious whether learning and practicing values is easier with different colors, like we see you painting with here tonight, or if just one color mixed with white and black would be better.
I would say if you are a beginner, the easiest way to, because if you're trying to figure out your values and you're just working on like the drawing skills of your, well, I say drawing skills, it's drawing skills of painting, because you have to have your drawing skills transfer through a paintbrush, and it's really difficult to kind of get a sometimes. So if you're just in that stage, I would say go ahead and just work in a monochromatic way. It doesn't have to be black and white. It could be a purple and white. It could be a blue and white. Just whatever you pair with your white, make sure that it has a really dark mass tone when it comes out of the tube. Now when I say mass tone, like I said here, this is straight out of the tube. It's almost black. This is what you're looking for. If you want to pair this color with another, like with white, that would be a really good way to look for your values to where you're not worried about color. Now when it comes to the values of your colors all together, if you're ever not sure, go ahead, grab your cell phone, take a picture, and then edit it to where you completely remove the saturation and put it into black and white, and then you can really see the values. It's one way to kind of work on that, and then just kind of playing around and seeing what works and what doesn't, and having fun with it, because there's really it's a lot of it's going to be practice. And you're seeing a lot of practice here. So it's one of those things that it's really fun, and it can also be very frustrating. So just take those baby steps into it where you're working monochromatically, and then you're kind of introducing maybe another color or another one, and kind of tiptoe into it that way. That might be a little bit more beneficial for you. Any more questions? All right, because I believe that is our time up. And there is my little nugget. I do love. I now have all the paintings of my cat. I'm gonna have to go frame these and put them on the wall, of course. But that was Expressive Pet Portraiture. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Go home, play with it, and you can actually work in this way with all kinds of different mediums. If you're working with gouache, oils, you just have fun with your different brush strokes and your different colors, and practice. And if you guys do, please post it to the Facebook Live group. I love seeing your work. I've been really enjoying everyone painting their own animal. I've seen a couple people paint my nugget. It's been amazing, and I've really enjoyed it. Or you can always tag us in any social media at JerrysArtarama. That was for you, Amanda. I know she's always reminding me. But that was the class, guys. Again, if you have any more questions in the future, you can always make sure you put them in the comments, and I will come back through and answer them in a written form, so that way you guys can have your answers that way. And that is the class. Oh, make sure you join us next week, before I forget. Next week, Mott is going to be back on, and they're going to be talking about painting hands, which is a very tricky subject, so I hope you guys are excited about that. And in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoy your evening, and I'll see you next time. Bye!